Welcome back to the Baseball Blue Book podcast. My name is Eric Wobanaw, the president of the Baseball Blue Book, and today we are excited to have Coach Gerbrick with us on the episode. He is with Indiana Wesleyan in Marion, Indiana. Coach, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Eric. Thank you so much for the opportunity to come on here. It's such a great chance to be able to talk some shop with you and spread some knowledge to everybody. So I'm really
Well,
excited.
that's great. I'm real excited about this as well. But before we begin, I encourage everyone to subscribe to the channel. If you're on YouTube right now, subscribe and like. We're excited to have you part of the program. If you're on Spotify or iTunes, please follow us. We've got a lot of great episodes that are coming your way. We are promising you an episode every single week. I've got a whole lot of coaches in the pipeline already scheduled, and really excited about bringing more knowledge to you guys as parents and players and even other coaches to learn a little bit more tricks of the trade, some things that you need to think about from a recruiting perspective, and just a good time of learning about the coaches that are raising the next generation of leaders in this country. So Chase, really excited to have you. Young guy. I think it's one of the youngest guys in college baseball or as a coach. I believe you're the youngest, right?
Yes, sir.
Well,
Yeah.
it's pretty awesome to see the young guys coming through and learning from the old guys, but also bringing a whole new perspective, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Really, one of the things that we talk about with the coaches is kind of old school, new school. You certainly have all new school and probably learning the old school just through your experience as being a player. But why don't we start off with your journey? Really, the journey to becoming a coach, which is obviously going to be your playing experience and your journey. I know you were at D1, so why don't you go ahead and start, Chase?
Absolutely. That's a great question, Eric. And I'll start with my family. From start to finish, I've had such a fantastic support system, starting with my parents, doing everything they could have done to make so many sacrifices for me. And that's something that's really special. And then having an older brother who also played here at Indiana Wesleyan, having him to look up to, not only as a baseball player, but as a person, it's everything I could ever ask for. So to start, I'm so appreciative of all their sacrifices for me. But age, I was involved with basically every sport from basketball. Wrestling was my best sport, but I didn't really like it that much. I was involved in football, did a little breakdancing, and then baseball. So my parents, when I was a young age, were like, we want to get you involved in everything so you can figure out what you like. You can be around people, socialize, and do all that good stuff. So going into middle school, I dropped to basketball and baseball. Mom was a big basketball player in high school. And then as I emerged into high school, I dropped everything. And I wanted to focus on baseball because since like 7th or 8th grade, my dream was to play at the D1 level. And so went through high school. And when I was in 8th grade, we put a recruiting video together. And I always tell people this. It was like in the winter, sent it out to every school in the country. And it took me about 4 hours. I emailed it. I was so excited. My dad was hitting me the ground balls. My mom was taping. My brother was catching my balls at first. Sent it out, and the next morning I had phone calls, texts, emails, and so ended up taking a trip out to Oregon State, and they got such a great staff over there and beautiful facilities, beautiful campus. And so my recruiting journey picked up really early. I was a switch hitting shortstop, and then freshman year I committed to Lipscomb University. Great staff and had a great year there this year. We played a tournament out there in Nashville, and I emailed them the day before, but I didn't hear anything back from them. And so we played there. I had a pro scout reach out to them and say, hey, you guys may want to watch this guy. But again, they didn't respond. And so I guess they were there, got to see me, and then got a follow on Twitter right after. And then a few weeks later, was able to set up a phone call with them through a player, and they offered me, and I was like, man, this is it. Because for me, so many guys commit for the hype, And for me, I wanted to commit to a place where, it fit my values and it just fit everything I was looking for from a religious standpoint, a community standpoint, a coaching staff, player standpoint, all that good stuff. So I had a tremendous time there this year. And then through high school, had the chance to play next to my older brother on the varsity team. When I was a freshman, he was a senior. So he was a first baseman. And our shortstop at the time was going to Penn State. So I got to learn from him and play second base, kind of learn the reins over there. And it was great. And so had that opportunity. And then through high school, didn't play my senior year. And that got a lot of backlash. But for me, obviously, I wanted to represent my community and have fun. But for me, I wanted to go from here to here. And I was playing summer baseball for a very competitive summer team, Bo Jackson Elite. And so I wanted to put on, some weight, some strength, good weight, obviously. And I wanted to work on some things that I felt needed improved before going into college. And if you know anything about high school baseball in Cleveland, Ohio, 3/4 of our year of our season is in snow and rain, and it's pretty brutal. And so I was coming off some injuries from past high school seasons, and I was like, this is going to be the smart move long term. So didn't do that, and it was probably the best choice looking back on it, I've made in my career, because I grew leaps and bounds. And there was a Baltimore Orioles coach, Eric Cormel, who took me under his wing, and we worked a lot, and that was great. And so I had a phenomenal summer year, and then entered Lipscomb as a freshman and had the chance to start a few games and have a great time there. So that's kind of the rundown on what I've been able to experience, all the way up to high school and through college.
You talk about, you started early, and how, and obviously your parents had a lot of influence on that, having an older brother. We talk a lot to parents and players, that are really looking for some advice as far as how to navigate through this. What as you went through there, how did you know what you needed to do, or was this really just advice coming from the parents? How is it at a young age were you able to go, okay, this is right for me?
Absolutely. That's a great question, Eric. I think, going through the recruiting process is obviously my dream to play at a very, very high level. And so, in my area growing up, I had a lot of resources. And so I connected with guys who, were playing at Ohio State, pro coaches, and, even trainers. And they're like, hey, if you want to do this, you have to email, because there are a million kids in your same spot right now, trying to get recruited. It's a very competitive industry. And so you need to do this, and this in your recruiting video. And you got to email as much as possible. And so for me, I've always been more of a self-motivated and driven kid. And I have my parents to thank for that. And so I was like, this is what I want to do. And I shouldn't say I dragged them out, but we went and we filmed a great recruiting video. And then from there, they were able to help me from there on, to make some more video and email. And then if I were to tell anybody, the tricks to, if you want to play at the collegiate level and make yourself stand out, you need to, be present on social media. I think Twitter is a great avenue, but what we just touched on, you guys need to look at the Baseball Blue Book and creating a profile, and you can narrow it down to what you're looking for, how far you want to be from home, what coaches you're looking for, the culture, the community, right? On Twitter, you can't really do that. But I would advise you to be active on those profiles. And then lastly, the email. Coaches want to see film on top of film. And like we just touched on, Eric, it's tough for us to be able to evaluate you when your parents are sitting in the top of the stands, recording you through a fence. It's like we can't see that, right? So we love game footage, but also we want to see you up close in, a showcase setting. And I mean, going up to the field, take some videos of a few angles, hitting off BP, taking some grounders off fungos, or if you're a pitcher, just up close, just mechanics throwing bullpens, right? Because we want to be able to evaluate, how you move, your projectability, and then, if you check all of our boxes there, then we can translate that into the game, what we're seeing there. But to answer your question, Eric, being active on social media and being present and staying on top of those emails.
I think that's really good. And you talked, your whole journey was really self-promotion. And I've talked about that for forever. It's if you want something, you need to go get it, and nobody wants it more than you, right? Money can't pay for that drive. Paying somebody else something, they're going to help you, but the only person that can really make this happen is yourself. And I appreciate kind of sharing that drive, self motivation. Obviously, parents did right in raising you and probably put you in some situation that made you forced you to have to do some things. And I think that's great. I love what you were talking about, what coaches are looking for. Talked about different video angles and the email. Coaches now, it's a message that's actually been out there for a while, right? You go on to social media and people talk about how to write emails, and you probably were one of the forefronts that actually did this, and then obviously got a huge result. What is some other things, to make yourself stand out? And again, there's a ton of talent out there, but from your perspective today, and you're now in a role of player development, recruiting, trying to find those players, what in your mind now is something that makes a player stand out?
Absolutely. So I think the one thing you just said, Eric, is effort, right? To get recruited, obviously there's a lot of great players, but it takes effort, right? And I say this all the time, unless you're, Drew Jones or Max Clark, you're probably not going to, get, like, nobody's going to come knocking on your door, right? Because there's so many kids. And so, we value, especially me, I'm going to come in as a coaching side from what I've seen so far for taking this position. Guys that stand out to me are, players that take an initiative to reach out, especially to set up a phone call, right? Like I love kids who can communicate. I love kids who are outgoing and who want to play for our program, right? Even if you're talking to 10 other schools or you're emailing 100 other schools, I love kids who know a little bit about us. I love kids who, obviously, yeah, you need to fit our standards as a player, but outside of player, I love kids who can communicate, who, take care of responsibilities in the classroom, outside the classroom, right? And kids who can, be relatable, have a sense of humor and be able to talk and have a conversation. I think that's so important. But, the standout pieces, we're living in an age now where there's a lot of talented kids out there, but I think you got to find ways to separate yourself. For me, I had a 4.0 GPA in high school, and I was a switch hitter. So those were things about me where I would include those in my subject line. You've got, a really good bite on your curveball, or, you have a rising fastball. I think little things like that, a great GPA. Include that in your subject line. If you're messaging us on Twitter, throw that in there, right? It's okay to brag about yourself in the recruiting process, because at the end of the day, you need to market yourself the best as you can. And so for us, the more information we can have on you, with so many kids in the industry right now, and we're just talking about high school, that's not including the portal, right, and JUCO guys, the more information we can have on you, I would say the better.
That's great. So let's talk a little bit. I appreciate that information. You've given some great advice, and I think as my mind's going, I've got so many other questions. What I'd like to do is talk about your program now, and we'll come back to some additional advice and things. But before we begin, I want to encourage everybody to subscribe to the channel. Baseball Blue Book podcast is on YouTube, also on iTunes and Spotify. If you guys are on any of those, make sure you subscribe. Helps us out. Gets the word out, and I appreciate your support on that. So we're with Chase. We're Chase Gerbrick, Indiana Wesleyan right now, 19 years old. And one thing that you didn't share is what happened in that D1. You went to Lipscomb. You started a few games. You're 19. You should still be playing. So what's the story there?
It's a great question, Eric. So number one, I have to start with Lipscomb is a fantastic place. The coaches are great. And I have so many close friends there that I've made, on the baseball team, not on the baseball team, that, I'm down there on a regular basis visiting them, and have established so many great relationships down there. So I'm very thankful for the opportunity I had. For me, throughout the year, I battled an arm injury. And so I had the chance to receive my first start versus Mississippi State on the road, which is such a cool opportunity. And then also Queens, a few weeks after. But, throughout the year was battling an arm injury, and, had to enter the portal just to see a new opportunity for me, one that would, fit me just a little bit better. And I had plenty of opportunity to play at the D1, D2, D3 JUCO level. But for me, just didn't want to go into a program where I was limited with my arm. The MRI came back and there was a lot of issues. And so the good news was that I'm able to throw BP and hit as many fungos as I want to. But the Cleveland Clinic does a great job, and they were looking out for me and had a lot of conversation with those doctors out there. So they do a great job. But 2 weeks before I was going to make a decision, I connected with Ian McDonald, who's our head coach at Indiana Wesleyan, and he said, "Hey, Chase, if you still want to play, I'll send your name out to as many D1 schools as I can, like all my resources. I think you're that, type of a caliber player. But for me, I've been watching your content on social media for a few years now, on some of the podcasts you've been doing, and we want you as a coach. We want you to be our director of player development, and be an asset for us. And so I want to throw that out there to you and allow you to put some thought into that." And so it took a few days, but I connected with my family and a few friends, and I was like, since high school, my dream is to be, the best coach I can be, and hopefully, one of the best historically Power 5 head coaches to come through the game. That's always been my dream. And he said, right now, I'm injured, and I'm not sure what's going to hold for me in that path, and I'm not sure I'm going to have this opportunity if I pass on it now. And so this is what I want to do. I feel I'm ready for it. I'm excited for it, and it's going to be a great opportunity to jumpstart my coaching career at a powerhouse NAIA school. We made the Final Four last year in the NAIA World Series, so it's a great opportunity, and just tremendous players, not only as athletes but great people. Just a fantastic administration, great community, and on top of that, very thankful for Ian McDonald and the staff there to give me a chance. So I'm really, really excited.
Man, that's great. What a whirlwind. I mean, 19 and you went from D1 starter at Mississippi State to now player development coach at a powerhouse NAIA program. I think that's fantastic, Chase. And I've always said that baseball players, and obviously I was a baseball player, so I always say the baseball players are the smartest and the most driven. And I think it's probably because we know how to lose. We know adversity, and without adversity, it's very difficult to grow. There's people out there that do a great job with very little adversity, but I think that's a true testament of the strength that people have. You talked about Power 5, you talked about, Lipscomb, you talked about your own program. Let's go back, because I think you've got so much information, and it's relevant. How does a player today that has that adversity from an injury, how do you deal with it? What do you, if you were to talk to a buddy of yours and same thing kind of happened, obviously everybody's opportunities are different, but a mindset can be consistent, and you can share that with them. What would you share with them if they had to kind of go through the same adversity that you went through?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, one of the things that I look back on, through my high school career, summer ball included, is, I did wish I failed a little bit more. When you get into college as a freshman, it's a growing opportunity. It's a bit of a learning curve, right? And so, not only the injury, but more so, the fall practices, getting adjusted to everything and competing against, since COVID backed everything up, essentially, 24, 25-year-olds, it's a jump, right? And so I think putting yourselves in a very uncomfortable situation, I should say putting yourself in uncomfortable situations and learning to be comfortable in those situations is essentially the best thing for any young guy to do. And, young guy, I mean, even guys in college, right? I think in 7th grade, my dad forced me to go to Evan Agona baseball showcase, which was one of the biggest showcases in Ohio at the time, with guys who were seniors in high school, juniors in high school, with pro talent, D1 talent, and I was the youngest guy there. But he threw me in the fire to say, hey, in high school you're gonna need to be doing these. So let's get you acclimated and comfortable to a very uncomfortable environment now. So when you're a freshman, you can walk in, okay, I know how this works, how to navigate this, right? And so I think it's the little things like that. Injuries are tough because I wouldn't recommend going to purposely get injured and then trying to, walk through that process. But, in terms of handling adversity with all types, whether it's an injury or you're not playing your best or you're in a hitting slump, right? I think, if you can experience failure at a young age, or you can put yourself in uncomfortable situations, whether that's baseball, whether that's, you want to go get an internship when you're a freshman in high school, right? With businessmen who are very knowledgeable and they're experts in what they do. I think that's so important. Just getting out of your comfort zone and learning to be uncomfortable and or learn to be comfortable in those uncomfortable situations.
Well, that's really good. Our one of our colleagues, Walter Beatty, does the baseball lifer program, and I think he just posted on Twitter just yesterday. He said, if you want your 12, 13, 14-year-old to really to handle some challenges, to learn how to handle some challenges, put them in the Legion ball, put them into 16, 17, 18-year-old, and let them compete. And it was the adversity that he was really talking about. And I've also talked to a lot of coaches that talk about the jump right from high school and to college. And I want you to expand on that a little bit. But they talked about when you come into a program, you might have been the top player at your high school or your travel team, but everybody on that team were the top at their high school and travel team, right? And now you're in there with a whole lot of guys that are really, really good. So talk about the kind of the transition from high school to college and the advice that you would provide to the players that are going through this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of guys in high school get wrapped up in the recruiting honeymoon. So I like to call it that because when you're in high school, coaches they're all over you. Like, we need you. You're going to be our guy. They'll tell you things that sometimes aren't even true to sell themselves and their program to get you there, right? Because they know how competitive it is. Now, I'm not sure I agree with that or not, but just that's how it is. That's how competitive it is. So I think as a high school kid, number one, you have to be aware of, the true reality, whatever school you're looking at. You need to, look at yourself in the mirror and say, I'm a D1 guy now, or I may not be a D1 guy now. Maybe I go JUCO, or, I want to get a great education and play competitive baseball, D3. I want to go to a powerhouse NAIA and get drafted. We have a lot of guys who get drafted out of here, right? And the big thing is, that's your goal. You can't get drafted if you aren't on the field, right? I think a lot of people are that D1 or bust phase. And it's you need to get out there and play and get seen, right? But I think the big challenge is, number one, it starts with finding a school. I think a lot of guys pick a wrong school based on hype, hearing from their friends like, oh my gosh, look at this guy, he's going school X, which is the best school in the country, where ahead of time they probably know they're not going to play. Right. So I think it's finding a school. For me, I committed to a mid-major freshman year, and people were like, what are you doing? And I'm like, it's a great fit for me. Right. Like, it fits my morals and values. And so I think it starts with picking the right school and the right fit. And it starts with, doing your research. And that's huge. And then obviously getting into college, just talking with college coaches over the past few weeks, connecting with everyone, and based on my experience, there's really no way to exactly prepare for college baseball, right? I would recommend that the best thing you can do, just work your tail off. Get up early before school, work out. Always be eager to learn. Play as many games as possible. But as Cliff Godwin said on your podcast, you also need to find time to give your body a break and just work on training. What do I need to work on? Because games are great. I am an advocate for games, but you also need to take time to work on yourself, right? Mentally, 90% of the game's mental, and yet we're working on the 10% every single day, right? So mental, getting stronger. I think weight room's a huge thing, but in terms of challenges, it's a mature game right now with how COVID has set things up, and I think that's going to die down here in about 2 or 3 years. But right now, I mean, you just need to have a dog mentality and a mentality when you go into college and say, I'm going to outwork everyone. I'm going to work as hard as possible, and I'm just going to be there to learn. For me, my freshman year, I had a lot of great resources and upperclassmen around me where I was able to sit there and just be a sponge, right? I picked their brain. Some guys I went to the field with on Saturday just to work on hitting or work on infield and just talk to them because they were all conference, or they were experiencing a lot of success, and I wanted to see what they were doing, right? So it's a never ending learning experience. But I think for you to be ready, you just got to work.
That's good.
You just got to work. That's the big thing. Work, learn, and it starts with picking the right fit.
That's fantastic. One of the things that I hear all the time with coaches is their desire to have a high graduation rate. And when high graduation rate means the coach has got to pick the right player. And so this is truly a back and forth, right? It's a symbiotic relationship. The players have got to be prepared to pick the right program. The coaches are always looking for the right player for the program, but their goal is graduation rate, right? I don't care if you're D1, you're NAIA, you're whatever it is. JUCO is typically a little bit different, how getting them to that next level, but most of them are looking at that graduation rate, and what that means is picking the right program. You've mentioned the reasons behind you going where you did, but let's talk more about you in the position you're in now, so that other players can think about this. From your perspective, what are you looking for, and what are the type of kids that Indiana Wesleyan is looking for your program?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question, Eric. Number one, we're looking for great people first. I think we want people who embody our values and our culture. And at Indiana Wesleyan, we have a very honest staff, and how we do things. We're a hardworking program. We want guys who have a hard work ethic. We want guys who treat their parents with respect. That's a huge one, because whether it's coming to our camp or we are coming to see you, right? Appreciate your parents with how much they're doing for you, right? And like I said, we want guys who just embody a great moral compass, people who can have a conversation, care for their teammates, hustle in between the lines, right? I think that's so important. Guys who can also take care of it in the classroom, because if you're not taking care of it in the classroom, whether it's true or not, it sends a message to us that, can this guy take care of it on the field? Can he show up early to practice? I don't like to say on time. I like to say early. Can he show up early to practice? Can he show up early to workouts? Right. And be there every single time? We can count on this guy to be an impact player for us, or impact teammate. I think that's crucial. On the playing side, we want guys who love to compete. We want pitchers, whether you're throwing 95 or whether you're throwing 80, we want guys who can get outs. That's important to us. We want players who just get in there and work and compete and get better and want to learn. And I think a big thing that we've touched on, Eric, is guys who take an initiative to reach out. For us, it's important that obviously you need to fit the mold for us as a player, but if you're reaching out to us, we're like, hey, we're going to show interest back, whether you're not a fit or not, we're going to show interest back. And I think the cool thing about, recruiting guys or, coming out to camp, as I tell players this all the time, is you need to make sure that we're also a good fit for you, right? It's a two-way street with that, because if it's not a fit for you, then obviously it's not going to be a fit for us. And if it's not a fit for us, right, it's not going to be a fit for you. So that's the big thing. But players, taking an initiative and reach out, sending us film, but just being a great person off the field. I can talk about being a great player all day long. It's what I do now, right? That's what we look for. But it's bigger than that. We want great people and great human beings to come in and not only be impact players, but impact people and impact teammates.
That's great, Coach. It's been a pleasure. You're an old soul, right? You've got a mind of someone that's been doing this a long time, and I think that has to do with your ability or your desire to learn through the process, right? There's a lot of kids that are out there just looking for themselves, and you've really mastered the ability to learn, which is the key to success, I think, in this life is constantly, no matter how old you are, you always have to be in a position to learn and position yourself that way. So, Coach, I appreciate the opportunity. I'm excited to watch your career. It's been an honor to have you on the program, and I appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you so much, Eric. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.